All right. Hello, everybody. Today I'm here with Lilia Gestson. And Lilia and I know each other because we are both taking yoga teacher training at the Sacred Yoga Institute. Hey. So it's an honor to have you here today. And as we were talking about, it's an honor to teach with you when we are able to do so. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so grateful that I get to be here having this conversation with you and that I get to share this amazing yogic journey with you. I am very grateful and appreciative to you and what you're doing and just the magic that you bring into this world. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, you are amazing. You are amazing. So we are going to pull an oracle card to start our conversation. But before we do that, why don't you just give a quick introduction of what you do?
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I help a community of Womexan reconnect to the wisdom of their womb and to their unique cycle, whether that's a hormonal menstrual cycle, a hormonal birth control cycle, a moon cycle, a cycle with a bleed, without a bleed, whatever type of cycle you're experiencing. And I help them do that through a very tantric yoga perspective of being able to reconnect to your wisdom, fall in love with your body, access your magic, access flow, just by being able to listen to all the amazing signals, intuition, and messages that your body has to offer you every month and every week. So that's what I do, and it fills my heart to do it. And I can't wait to share more about that with everybody here today.
Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic. And there's been so much in my life that's called me into really talking about and feeling into the energy of the divine feminine in the last couple of years. And so I'm just so happy we're going to talk about today. All right, so I am firing up my hands. The cards are all on my lap, and you just tell me when, and I'll grab one.
When?
Okay, all right. This one, it says children. Know that your children are protected.
Oh, oh, that's beautiful. Is he inside a lily too?
Yes. Yep, the tiger, and it's a girl inside the lily next to the tiger. Okay, so let me just see what the booklet says. Okay. All parents' first and foremost responsibility is to keep their children safe from harm. The angels want to reassure you that all is well. Your children in heaven and on earth are loved and protected by God and the angels. Your children function at their best when they are loved, cherished, and feel secure within their home and family environment. Mantra: my children are happy and safe. Okay. So while the first thing that came to mind is that while we have been getting ready to talk, we talked a little bit about healing your inner child and how important that is as it relates to some of us with our first period stories and things that happened that maybe they weren't as blissful and beautiful as they could have been. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about maybe what that card brought up for you as it relates to the work that you do.
Oh, I love that. Yep, that brought up so much. First off, that was such a perfect card to draw for this conversation. The same thing came up was healing your inner child, especially around all of the menstrual experiences that you had growing up, specifically around that first time that you bled. And a lot of us have a lot of trauma around that experience, just based off of the way our society, the way Western society functions. And then the other thing that came up was we as individuals with wombs, we are born with all of our eggs already inside of us. So all of the children that we could possibly have are already inside of us when we're born. And what's so magical about that is that means that you have not only traveled through like the energy and the experiences of this life, but you've also traveled through the experiences of your mother's whole life and part of your grandmother's life too. And you hold this wisdom within your body, within your womb, that is so much more expansive than just what you've experienced here on earth within this lifetime. And that, just taking that perspective and taking a moment to breathe that in is always so magical, because there's something about knowing that you hold this ancient wisdom within you that not only can be empowering depending on where you are in your journey and what you're ready to receive, but it also means that you can trust yourself way deeper than you trust yourself now, because you hold so much more wisdom that you can ever imagine. And it's just about reclaiming it and tapping into it again. So that was a main thing that came up with that card too. And not only do we hold all of our eggs inside our womb, but also our womb holds, like, we're able to not just like birth life by children, but we're able to birth ideas. We're able to birth creations. That's literally our beautiful like Mother Earth creation center, that we can bring anything that we choose to life in our, or yeah, anything we choose to life in our life.
I've never thought about it in terms of your eggs are with you from the day you're born, that they're already, you're born with them inside of you. So what a miracle to think about that generational wisdom and those experiences that are passed down through the lives of our mothers and our grandmothers as well. I've never ever thought about that way. So that's really incredible. So when you share these types of things with your clients and the people who work with you either one-on-one or in group through your studio, what are some of the memorable reactions that people have shared based on kind of even exploring this topic? Because sometimes it's taboo to talk about it.
Oh yeah, super taboo. And when I first got into this journey, I actually got into it through conceptual art. So I was an artist before I got into like coaching and facilitating community spaces around this. And I did this art piece where I dressed in all white and I'd ask people to write their thoughts about menstruation on my clothing. And I did this about it was so magical. I did this like 5 to 7 times around the Maryland, DC, Virginia art gallery scene. And every time I would have one of two reactions, which is what I get now when I'm talking about this too. One, people would get very emotional and start sharing these stories that they had nobody else to ever share them with around their period, around their cycle, around what they go through. Or maybe they were raised in an environment that didn't talk about it. And this was the first time someone's actually like asked them to their opinion about their cycle and their period. And they would get very emotional, and the smile that would come onto all these individuals' faces when they'd come and write something and walk away was just magical to experience. That empowered aura radiating from their body. And then the second reaction I'll get is some individuals on their journey with reconnecting to their cycle, they're not ready to really dive into this like deeper aspect of the wisdom, and the work around their cycle right now is just being able to express their frustration, being able to say that they hate their period in a safe environment without any kind of backlash, and going through that journey of reclaiming their own empowerment before getting into all the like deep wisdom within your body and what's actually going on. And usually those reactions when I get into topics similar to this aren't as welcoming, just because they're at a different place in their journey, and that's beautiful and wonderful, and we all need to go through all these different places at our own time. And rather than it being a straight line, it's a very zigzagged line of reclaiming your womb, and you jump from stage to stage. So I usually get very emotional and like oh type responses, or more angry responses, or that have a lot of anger, a lot of personal shame around the topic. And I get that from all genders, all individuals. So it's beautiful to just be able to bring that topic and see how it's received, and plant that seed for when anyone's ready to explore it, if they ever are.
You know, I was just thinking when I was brought up and we would talk about our cycles, we talked about it as like that time of the month. Like that is it. It is one window. Like that is when you have your period or you're on the reg or whatever you say, right? It's all kind of negative connotation. But as long as you don't have it, it's like you don't worry about it, you don't think about it, you don't talk about it. And you just mark on the calendar if and when it comes, and then you just keep going on about your life. And it shouldn't, there was nothing else associated to it or with it. And what I am learning now in my mid 40s is about the actual cycle. And I've never really thought about it or considered it because, well, I really don't know why. It just was what I was exposed to, I guess. And I was never called to explore it more on my own. I just sort of went with it. And so I'd love for you to just share a little bit about the whole cycle and how it's referred to when you talk about it.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. Our Western society, and this is different from country to country, society to culture. But Western society, we really do have a lot of shame around this topic. And most people grow up not knowing anything about their cycle. It's not taught very well in sex ed in school. Like there's not a ton of information. So a lot of times when people are growing up, there's no way to even know that there's anything like any other part of it. You can't know something unless you learned about it at some point. And it's really beautiful being then introduced to this idea, because all of a sudden a lot of things start to click around how you feel every month. So when I talk about your cycle, I'm talking about literally every single day of your life.
Mhm.
So as individual, actually everybody, and there's all different cycles you could be experiencing. Everyone's experiencing some sort of cycle. If you're an individual with female anatomy, you are either experiencing a hormonal cycle, which lasts from the first day of your period all the way to the next first day of your period. So it's literally every single day of your life, where approximately every week, depending on how long your cycle is, your hormones go through a shift. Different hormones are higher in your body, different hormones are lower, which affect our mental health. It affects our emotions. It affects our energy levels. It affects our cravings. It affects how hungry we are. It's literally influencing every area of our life, how easy it is to respond to our environment, what our senses are feeling like at that time. Our hormones are really beautiful in guiding us on that. If you're on a hormonal birth control cycle, you're still experiencing an amazing cycle, but you're going to experience those shifts from week to week very differently. And that gets to be this amazing adventure of going on and figuring out what each weekly shift looks like for you. And those are then called inner seasons. So we have 4 inner seasons in our cycle. If you no longer have a uterus, or if you're not bleeding, you're still experiencing a cycle too, except your cycle is now with the moon, and the moon influences our bodies. And it's influencing everybody around how you feel at the full moon, how you feel at the new moon. I personally, if I'm ovulating, which happens like approximately midway through your cycle on a full moon, generally I have a nervous breakdown unless I can prepare for that heightened energy around me and really give myself time to relax and cool down. And then individuals with male anatomy, they're on a 24-hour cycle. So our society, the way our workforce is set up, is very much structured to a male hormonal cycle, where your hormones peak midway through the day, and then at nighttime when you're sleeping, they come down again. Which is very different from an individual with a womb, or an individual with female anatomy, because your cycle is going through that same cycle as a male's does in 24 hours, but over like 28 or more days. So you can see that peak halfway through the month and that coming back down for your bleed later on.
Okay, I'm like I love talking with you every time we connect, but like I'm learning so much right now, because again, these are things where, oh yeah, your cycle, it's a 28-ish day cycle, right? But that's about it. Like you've just taken it so much deeper already. And talking about whether you, based on your anatomy and based on whether you bleed or you don't bleed at this point, like there are all the nuances to it. So how, I have to ask this, how did you like get into this? Like what was the trigger for you that was like, this is my calling? Because clearly this is part of your soul calling.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. And I think just like many people may experience when they start tapping into like what their soul is calling them to do, you're right. There's that trigger moment. I hated my period, like with a vengeance. I got my period. I grew up as a rhythmic gymnast. So I grew up as a competitive athlete. I was traveling across the country. I was homeschooled. I was going to like national and international competitions. And because of that, I didn't get my period until I was 17. So I was super late getting my period. And up until that point, I grew up with a mother and a sister who both were very open about menstruation, which I'm very grateful for. But they also experienced a ton of period pain. So I was not in any rush to get my period, knowing what was coming my way. And when I got my period, my first menarche experience, I like went to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I realized I had my period, and I had this sinking sensation in my body that was like, oh crap, now I have to deal with this every month. And that was my experience for many years. After finishing my gymnastics career, I went on to pursue a professional ballet career and moved to Pittsburgh. That was a whole ordeal. Lots of injuries happened there. But when I moved home again and I went to college, I went through a year with lots of life changes happening. And when your life changes, so does your cycle, because it's one of your first responders to monitor your health and how you're feeling, like how you're doing emotionally. So my life changed in about a year. I came home from where I was living in Pittsburgh. I started going to school. I stopped exercising because I had too much trauma around moving my body and around dance. So for like a full year and a half, I didn't move my body at all, like no kind of exercise. I got into a new relationship and became sexually active, and my mother got cancer all in that same year. So my body had, and she's okay now. She was very strong and battled through it and is doing much better now. But that whole year, not only was it a lot emotionally, it was a lot physically, and I found myself like burning out all the time. And with that came period episodes that were way worse than anything I'd ever experienced. I'm pretty sure I have endometriosis. However, I've never been diagnosed with it, but I would be vomiting on my period. I would break out in these cold sweats. The first day I was like completely comatose and was like dead in bed, just trying to keep fluids down in my system. And that started becoming more and more regular for me. And I hated it. So badly. And that was actually what led me to do that first art piece that I was talking about with people writing on my body. It was originally for an art assignment in school, and we had to do a performance piece, and I was feeling extra frustrated with my period at that point, and I was like, you know what, I can't be the only one who's super frustrated with this. Let's open up this conversation. And that ended up being one of the biggest blessings that I ever did, doing that art piece. And that took me to doing it all over like Maryland, Virginia, DC, speaking to all these amazing people who were all having the same experience, who all felt frustrated, who all had no platform to talk about it on. And then from there, I really wanted to heal my relationship with my womb. I was like, this literally can't be it. We can't menstruate for like 40 or more years and this be like the end, where it's just like pain every month. You just wait for it to come, you wait for it to leave. Like there's got to be more to this. Our bodies are smart. And that was kind of the first trigger. And that's how I got into all of this and healing my relationship with my own body. I had a very toxic relationship with my body just to begin with, from growing up in like a dance and athletic atmosphere, and healing the relationship I had with my self-esteem, with my self-confidence, and all of that tied into being able to understand my cycle every month, be able to understand my crazy mood swings that I could then feel more in control over because I knew where I was in my cycle. And it just took me on this amazing journey. And as I stepped on that journey, everybody else wanted to know about it. Like everyone started coming to me talking about their period and their cycle and being like, and it would be so random. Like at work, one of my coworkers would come up and just be like, you know what, I got my period last week and I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm like, yes, I'm here for it. And that was kind of the catalyst. And now here I am now. This is what I get to do and talk about for a living. And it's the greatest blessing I could have ever asked for. And now I love my cycle so much.
There's so much wisdom in there in honoring your body, listening to what your body needs, tuning into the energy of your cycle. I would imagine like forgiving yourself over time for what you put your body through. Because there's nothing wrong inherently with the sports, but it's sometimes when we're not managing that full mind body connection that things can go wrong and create some drama and trauma for us. So wow, just so much wisdom, so much grace and wisdom. What would you say for women who are transitioning out of having their periods? Because there's oftentimes like perimenopause or menopause where people don't talk about it. Again, very taboo. And we should try to open that up a little bit too.
Yes, I'm so happy you brought up this. This is actually one of my favorite conversations. I'm so psyched to go through menopause. I'm so excited. And it's so contrary to what our society tries to teach us, but I'm literally like, I cannot wait. And the reason is because like our cycle teaches us so much from month to month. When we're bleeding, when we're going through all these different inner seasons, our cycle's really like taking us through this like self-empowered learning journey where we're connecting to ourselves, to our soul, to our body. We're learning the lessons of doing our inner work. We're learning the lessons of how to balance our energy in our life. And then what ends up happening is after we've gone through that, once we start getting to perimenopause and menopause, our body's like, okay, you've learned all these lessons. It is now your time to go be the teacher. It is your time to go share your wisdom, to shine your light. We like your cycle has taught you everything you need to know. Now it's like your time to fly. And that's like from a cyclical living perspective, that's what perimenopause and menopause gets to be, is this time of like owning your truth and flying with it and sharing it and being that wise woman teacher that you are now after experiencing a whole lifetime. And unfortunately, that's not how our society approaches perimenopause and menopause. And there's not much support around managing the hormonal shifts that go through your body at that time. Or if you have a hysterectomy or something that just ends your cycle, we really don't have any support in our society of how to transition from experiencing a hormonal cycle or a hormonal birth control cycle all of a sudden to experiencing this new realm of either not experiencing a cycle, not experiencing a hormonal cycle, or being in perimenopause and menopause. And for many individuals, that experience can be terrifying. Like there's no support, there's rarely any education around it.
It's like a secret.
It's like a giant secret. Yeah.
Don't talk about it. It's not pleasant. Like that's all you get. That's all you hear.
Yeah. And it's so sad. And it makes me so sad that that's how our society has approached it up until now. And I have high hopes that we're slowly changing that. But with the right support, like being able to understand how to tap into those shifts that are happening in your hormones as they're shifting, or be able to have that support as you navigate this new territory where your emotions, your energy, all of it's going to feel very different for you. With that support, that time can be very beautiful, like a very beautiful blossoming of. Or if you're already past that time and it was not a beautiful blossoming for you and you had a very terrible relationship with that experience, which I know many people who have had, it gets to be a time to reclaim what you would have wanted that experience to be. Just like we reclaim our first period, we get to reclaim that transition out of our cycle for ourselves and heal our own inner child at whatever age that is, and step into that power that we now have coming into no longer experiencing a cycle and own it for what it truly is. And that gets to be a beautiful healing journey in itself.
That's amazing. And I love how you totally tied in going back to the inner child. That was amazing. Because it's all about kind of the cycle of life. It's the journey of life and honoring yourself no matter what stage you're in. I just think it's beautiful.
So, I love that.
For anybody who is watching this, how can they get in touch with you? What is the best way to, explore everything that you have to offer?
Yes, I would encourage you to head over to my Instagram, which is Lilia_Gestson. And you can also head over to my website, which is also liliageston.com. So LILIAGESTSON. And you can head over to my YouTube channel, which is also Lilia Gestson. So nice and simple. You can go check out all of those different places. I have lots of information on there. And I really invite you to send me like a DM on Instagram or send me an email. I'm here to listen to your stories and to support you and to be whatever you need me to be, whether that's a friend, a guide, someone to welcome you into a community of Womexan who are all going on this journey with you in the Uniquely Cyclical studio that we have. And yeah, you don't need to do this alone. Like you do not need to go through this journey alone. And I've been there doing it alone. And I can tell you that doing it with love and support is so much, what's the word I'm looking for? It's so much more empowering having a ton of people behind you helping you through this. So I just encourage you to reach out and to start by going and checking out all the information on all those different sites.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and for talking through all of these magical seasons of life. I appreciate you, and I'm so filled with gratitude that you took this time today. And namaste, my friend.
Namaste. Thank you so much.